I'm so tired of this, guys. It's been years now. Stop psyching yourselves out when you see Japanese players in your lobby. It is true that at top level, competitive Japanese teams generally beat competitive Western teams. There have always been Western teams that could make the podium at Japanese tournaments. Teams like Starburst are still at that level today, but they're not even usually the runners-up. Japan has maybe, very rough estimate, 4 times as many players who can compete at the elite level than America and Europe combined. Since those players live fairly close to each other compared to Western players, they can compete at a very high level with fairly low latency in convenient time zones with other elite level players in more different combinations of team comps and combinations of players, and they can learn more different effective play styles faster and discuss the game with more nerds with different nerdy perspectives. They do have an advantage in terms of where they live. That information I just went through has literally no bearing on the way that you experience the game in solo queue. It's completely irrelevant to your matches unless you are a top-level Western player competing in tournaments attended by Japanese teams. Gaps like that are slight and only start holding anyone back compared to the rest of the competition once they've already gone through very rigorous training. You get to complain about a gap like that when you've done everything in your power to reach the highest level and fallen short because of that gap. Until that point, though, it's not going to matter to you, because you can totally beat the Japanese players you're matched against if you just focus on learning the game to the best of your abilities. They're not at such a high level that they're going to use all of the resources at their disposal. And so, by using all the resources at your disposal, you can easily catch up to the vast majority of them. If you played sports or some other kind of competition in school, you'll know the advantage that a team has when their school has more students attending it. They split up American high schools into different divisions in sports based solely on how many people attend them, because it's a simple statistical advantage. The more people attend, the more likely you are to find that 1 in 1,000 athlete that will have a huge impact on the success of your team, and the stronger your depth chart will be of players who can support them. Some schools can barely field a team, and even then it's maybe only because one of the players peer pressured their not that athletically inclined buddy into joining so they'd be able to play at all, whereas some have to turn away 90% of the players who try out, and the second team is always going to be more competitive. Japan has more players than the West does. The game is bigger in Japan than it is here. So their varsity teams are always big, scary, and intimidating to us. But there's a very small number of people, barely in the double digits, from Europe or North America, who care about being able to beat Japan's varsity teams. When you go into solo queue in S rank, and you see Japanese characters in those players' names, you're not playing against top-level Japanese superstars. Chances are nobody in your lobby has ever entered a tournament before. It's a better comparison to say that you're up against a bunch of randomly chosen kids from that school. Maybe those kids are somewhat athletic and have played the sport before, but maybe some others of them spend their time on the chess team instead, or just want good grades, or don't really do much of anything. This isn't the team bringing home glory at the homecoming game. These are the people cheering in the stands or just staying home because it's cold outside, man. Sure, they're at this school with this prestigious sports program that regularly churns out winners, but that doesn't mean they're the ones taking advantage of the resources available to them to be high achievers in that activity in particular. If you're the varsity team at your small school, but you practice the game, you'll still beat any collection of random students from your toughest of rival schools. It'll be their trained teams that really smoke you. I'll give you an even more extreme kind of advantage as an example, a biological one. When I was a runner, I was never a varsity level athlete, but being male, I had a physical advantage that let me compete against the highest level female athletes in my region. My times were comparable to the fastest women in the state, despite my rarely even making the cut for my JV team. In that sport, men and women actually compete in different divisions due to those advantages. But those women and I were still really freaking fast. I had a sub 5-minute mile and close to a 3-hour marathon. The top level women could run 15 miles at a faster speed than the vast majority of human men can possibly run 1 mile. Consistent training made people with a biological disadvantage seem like superheroes compared to people that have a biological advantage but haven't put the same kind of work in. The Splatoon advantage isn't anywhere near that rough, too. Out of the millions of people who play this game, there are like maybe a few dozen Japanese players where I look at them like, I don't think there's a Western team that can compete with these guys right now. For everyone else in Japan, they're in range. Go get them if you want to. Lastly, even if Japan just had too deep a depth chart, that their F team beats our A team every time, Splatoon 3 has a ranking system for a reason. While it's not a great ranking system, as I've commented on at some length before, it's going to make it so that until you reach a fairly high level of play, you're not just going to end up having to play against Melon or Chocopero at random. You're not even going to have to play against the Japanese F team if you're not at the level of the Japanese F team. It's going to put you up against players from Japan or anywhere else that are beatable if you decide to learn enough about the game. Japan has scrubs too. Stop getting scared by them and start watching what they do and learning how to beat them.